Greetings, fellow action figure connoisseurs, and welcome to another episode of Digital Caveman Presents Masters of the Universe Tuesday. I, as always, am your host, the Digital Caveman, and today I will be presenting you with the Masters of the Universe, Masterverse, Masters of the Universe, New Etheria, She-Ra. Let's get into it! Let's start things off with a look at the packaging. And here on the top flap, we've got Mattel 6 and Up, 30 points of articulation, and then Masterverse and that nice 1980s Rocky explosion. Here we have She-Ra 40th anniversary logo, and then a nice little window showcasing some of the figure and accessories. And then here we have some nice artwork. She-Ra, she's facing off against Montana. Oh, look at there, it's Looky. Looky. Masters of the Universe, New Etheria, not New Eternia, New Etheria. She-Ra. On the bottom, small print, fine print, legalese print, made in Vietnam print shop, or MattelShop.com. Contents, one figure and accessories, a question mark, assortment numbers, and a barcode. On this side, we've got some lone artwork of She-Ra there in a really weird pose. That's weird. So, and then the artwork on the front, it does carry around to the side here where we see Cowl and Swiftwind. And some Etherian plants and stuff. So are we getting a Cowl soon? Maybe even a Swiftwind. One can hope. And then, of course, we know Montana is coming, and I do believe he's coming under the New Etheria banner. So that's cool. And finally on the back, we've got nice, almost a digital render, but practical photography shot of the figure, possibly on a green screen, because it doesn't quite work out right there. And then here we have some close-ups of some of the features of the figure, and then it says there's another artist rendering of She-Ra there. She-Ra, the most powerful woman in the universe. For the honor of Grayskull, She-Ra stands with the powers of New Etheria against the evil horde and protects the boundaries of the universe from an invasion. Also available, each sold separately, subject to availability. Colors and decoration may vary. And here's what they're talking about. The cross-sale, Terraclaws, Skeletor, Ninjor, and this figure, She-Ra. Mattel, empowering generations through play. And that, my friends, is our look at the packaging. Let's take a look at the figure and her accessories. And here we have handy dandy tweezers to help us take a look at the smaller stuff, like these fists, the alternate set of hands she comes with. Nothing new that we haven't seen in the line before. In and out hinges, nice molded detail. It's a fist. And same pretty much can be said about this one, except it's for the opposite side. And again, in and out hinge. Now let's take a look at her shield. This is a new piece as far as I can tell. Yes, it's new. So it's got the little gem in it. And this figure overall is more reminiscent of the original figure. Whereas the last Masterverse She-Ra that we got was more in the cartoon style, with a little bit of, you know, the toy elements thrown in as well. Not that this one is 100% like that, but like the toy. But yeah, very much more reminiscent of the toy than the last issue. So it's got that jewel in there and just nice sculpted details. I mean, it's like, I guess, filigree in here behind the star blast, and then it's got the wings, and then so that's pretty cool. And then We've got the arm straps, I guess is what you want to call them, if that's what you want to call them. And they're glued in, and you have to remove her arm. You have to remove her hand in order to slide this on, then put the hand back on. Unless she's using the fist. The fist might fit through there, I don't know. So, but there's that. Pretty cool. And then here is her sword of protection, which again, very, very much more like the toy, although it's got paint here where the original had like one of those sticker jewels or whatever. But yes, her sword of protection, much, much more like the original toys. And you can see it's got some nice detail on the handle there. So that's cool that that's a throwback. And again, like this whole figure is kind of a throwback. Like the skirt piece that she's wearing is much more like that soft goods piece that the original figure had. And then, you know, she's got this jewel right here. And the design of the armor is not all that much like the original figures, and then the extra cape on the other one was more like the toy. So there's, you know, similarities to the toy that this one has and the last issue of She-Ra had, but this one, of course, it really reminds me much more of the toy than the animation. So we've got some gold paint here on the edges of the helmet. I think there's a bit of a wash in the hair as well, which is nicely sculpted. I really, really like that, especially with like these two wisps coming around to the front. I think that's cool looking. And then her cape, and it's kind of an armor piece around her neck, and it comes down, and it's got these two shoulder pads in it, and they are sort of hinged. They will flap up and down a little bit. And then we get to her face, and the deco on her face, and I think it's mostly the placement of the eyes with a slight smirk on her face too, makes her look a bit mischievous. It also makes her look like she might be up to some adult endeavors, or she may be using some adult beverages, or even misusing some RX. And I hope that doesn't get this video, you know, slapped around because I said those things, but that's just kind of how it looks. The eyes have it. Maybe I'm just a dirty old man, I don't know, but there's some gold right there, and then, you know, a little bit of a paint app right there. So it's very, very nice looking head. And again, it's a little weird because it looks like I said before. So then around the edges of the wing pieces here, there's some gold paint there, and on this side the bracers look like they're molded in gold plastic, and then it's got this little paint app right there for the jewel. This jewel is a paint app, it looks like. Yeah. And then it's got a little bit of a gold paint app around it as well. And there's a little line of gold around the waist as well as at the top of or it goes down the skirt piece as well. And, you know, it goes around the back as well. And while we're looking at the back, look at all that filigree on the armor. It's just tons of molded detail there. It's all covered up by this cape, but it looks really cool. The cape and the filigree. So then the legs, I'm pretty sure we've seen these molds before with female figures. Evelyn, maybe some of the Revelation Tilas, I'm not sure. But I think we have seen it before. And then we get down to the boots. These look new, and they're molded in gold plastic, same as the feet. The feet have a little bit of the swirly twirly to them, but I think that's the difference between this being a harder plastic and this being a softer plastic. And there you can really see the swirly twirlies down here on the bottom. So overall, I think it's a nice looking figure. I just wish, I think it's like the eyes are a little too far up. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So let's talk about her articulation a little bit. She can't really look up because of the hair. She looks down that far and it still gets caught in the hair. She's got some chicken neck. She's got some waggle. She has some turn. It really doesn't want to go all the way around. These shoulder pads really, really get in the way. So I'm not going to force the issue on that. So at the shoulder, arms come up slightly past 90 degrees and are supposed to go around 360 degrees. Let's see. Yes, it did. Single hinge and swivel at the elbow, swivels around 360 degrees and gives you approximately 90 degrees of bend, 360 degrees of rotation at the wrist on an in and out hinge, and the other side unfortunately is an in and out hinge as well. Cut where the chest and the abdomen meet. Gives her a little bit of hula. She can lean left and right some. She leans back hardly any at all. And same forward. And then she does have a bit of rotation there as well. There's a straight cut at the waist also. And it does give you a 360 degree rotation there as well. Now here's where we start running into some issues. Now she does have pull down hinge in the hips and it works really well. The legs, however, even after being heated up, do not like to articulate forward. Backwards, it's okay. And when you heat up this part, it does work much better. And unfortunately, that's on both sides. This one moves a little bit better than the other one. And I heated the leg up and I did remove it. So I do know what's going on there. And it is a design issue. There's like some lines, detent type lines on the ball peg. And then there's grooves on this upper thigh part. And that's where the issue is happening. So hopefully this is the only one they do like this, and it's not an issue going forward. Maybe I can sand the ball joint down a little bit and fix that issue. I don't know. So there's a cut at the thigh, the upper thigh, full 360 degrees of rotation there. Double hinged pinless knee. Now everything else works pretty good. I did have to heat the knees up though. So you get that much range out of the knees. At the top of the shin, there's a boot cut for another 360 degree rotation. And then at the ankles, tilts down that far, tilts up that far, and then she does have a pin for rocker. Now as far as storage for her stuff goes, of course, the fists will not store. The shield, I say it goes on her arm. I may have been mistaken. You may have to pull the arm off to get it on here. I don't know. So maybe it's not supposed to go up that high. Maybe she's supposed to hold it. Well, let me do that off screen. Okay, and there we have it. So you put the hand on it and then put this part on her arm and insert the arm back in, or the hand back in. And then as far as the sword goes, she just holds it in her hand. And she had two separate pieces with the original toy, not like the animation where the sword turned into the shield. So there you have it, my friends. A look at the figure and her accessories and her issues. It's time for my favorite part of a review, comparisons. And here we have the Masters of the Universe Masterverse, Masters of the Universe New Etheria She-Ra, with the Masters of the Universe Masterverse Princess of Power She-Ra, and the Masters of the Universe Masterverse Princess of Power Hordak. For our last set of comparisons, here we have the Masters of the Universe Masterverse, Masters of the Universe New Etheria She-Ra, with from the Marvel Legends series making his cameo appearance, Stan the Man Lee. From G.I. Joe Classified series, the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Regal variant Cobra Commander. From Star Wars The Black Series, the Archive Edition 501st Legion Clone Trooper. And for a 7-inch scale comparison from the Masters of the Universe Masterverse line, the 40th Anniversary He-Man. For final thoughts on the Masters of the Universe Masterverse, Masters of the Universe New Etheria She-Ra, I will have to say I wasn't sure that I liked the look of this figure from the promotional materials put out for it. And I have to say I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the figure itself. I think it's a lot better in hand than what the promotional pictures showed. That's not to say this figure is not without its issues. First of all, Mattel's decision to take a step backwards with its Masterverse female figures by only giving them single hinge and swivel elbows seems just wrong, and it really hinders the posability of these figures a lot, in my opinion. Your mileage, of course, may vary, and I don't know if it's a cost-saving measure. I wouldn't understand where it would be, seeing as how they already had, you know, bare, double-hinged, pinless elbows, arms for that, you know. So I don't understand why the step backwards in this case. For some reason, the mold of the upper thigh, it's like it has detents molded into it, and they don't like to work. And in fact, I find that every time I want to move the hips on this figure, I have to warm them up, and that just shouldn't be the case. And I hope it's not something with the leg mold itself. Maybe it's just my copy of it, I don't know. But you know, with this being probably the new legs for female Masterverse, I hope it's not an issue with every single female figure going forward from here. I don't recall having that issue with Evil N, although I think I do remember having the single hinge and swivel issue with her. But you know, that's just something I just, it blows my mind that they would take that step backwards with the figure, especially with the molds of those arms already being available. And so I don't know. And then there's, you know, her face deco, which I talked about earlier, and I'm not going to get all back into that. And which is not to say it's horrible, or, you know, it's not bad or anything. It's just the look that happens to be on the portrait. And, you know, so I don't know. Now, I do like her cape doodad with the shoulder pads attached to it. I think that's an improvement. the mold, again, the mold on this is there's lots of detail in here, and I'm glad to see that it's more of a pearlescent finish on the figure rather than from the promotional pictures it looked more like swirly twirly white plastic to me. At least that's how it looked. And so I'm glad it doesn't look like that in hand. And again, I'm much more impressed with the figure in hand than the promotional pictures, minus the few, you know, the elbows and the hip issues. Not that there was an issue with the elbows themselves, not like a motion issue or anything like that, just the fact that it's a step backwards in the articulation department, especially the range of motion. I mean, this pose that she's in here would have been much better had, you know, an extra hinge in that elbow, at least in my opinion. Not that I'm the greatest figure poser there ever was. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. But, you know, again, overall, I think this is a good figure. And if you're wanting to try out the new Etheria line, you know, she's the first figure in that subline, even though I guess it's actually also new Eternia. But I guess they decided to call it new Etheria because, you know, she's on Etheria rather than Eternia. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a Despera in this line, or even a Force Captain Odora. Well, I've rambled on long enough. That does it for the review. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. Only support from viewers like you make this programming possible. Each view does count, and I do appreciate each and every single view I receive. Thank you, and thank you so very much for supporting this channel through viewing. If you are interested in supporting my channel further, I'm now offering memberships at various tiers. Click the join button on my YouTube page, or check this video's description for the link and see if any membership offers are right for you, but only if you are in a position to do so. Comment below, like, share, subscribe if you would like to see more content or just help the channel grow, or both. That's even better. And don't forget to ding that bell so that in the future you will be notified as my new content becomes available. That's a wrap, folks. I'll see you next time.